Hi, I'm Eric Bolling in for Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get right to our top story. Can anyone stop Donald Trump? Two new polls out from Iowa and New Hampshire show him still leading the Republican pack. And today, he invoked Republican icon Ronald Reagan while making a case for his own conservatism. Here's a preview of what Trump will say in an interview airing on Hannity at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Ronald Reagan was a Democrat, and he was sort of liberal, and I knew him. I didn't know him then quite, but I knew him, and I knew him well. He liked me, I liked him. He was like this great guy, and he was a Democrat with a liberal bent, and he became a great conservative, in my opinion.
Sure, one of the greatest presidents.
By the way, and a great president, and a great leader, he had something very special. But if you think of it, he was a little bit less conservative, actually, than people think.
He was a governor, sure.
He had a great heart, and I have a great heart.
Right. With Trump becoming more entrenched as the frontrunner, even some of his biggest critics are giving serious thought to him potentially becoming the GOP nominee.
I'd hold my nose and vote for him, but we'd get killed. I mean, Hillary Clinton would beat him like a drum. I mean, this message of his, 62% of the people said they would not vote for Donald Trump under any circumstance.
Joining us now with reaction from Washington, David Drucker, senior correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and with me in studio, Real Clear Politics national political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. Now, Caitlin, we were talking just before the show. Look, he is defying all political odds. But you say there's a time where that could end. When is that?
Right. The laws of political gravity do not apply to Donald Trump. If we know one thing, we know that. However, where his campaign will be tested is when it comes to the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. The Iowa caucuses, as we know, take a lot of campaign infrastructure and organization. That's when voters will really have to be put to the test as well. There's really no consequence at this point of registering in the polls. We've seen him continue his support. Supporters are
increasing his support. Caitlin, on the heels of some very controversial comments, he is increasing in Iowa and doing very well in New Hampshire. Let me bring it to David. Hang in there for 1 second. David, Trump gets hammered in the media, yet his poll numbers rise. He says things that people say he shouldn't say, and his poll numbers go even higher. You know, Congress has about a 15% approval rating. You know, it's not really rocket science to say, I'm not one of them, therefore, I have an 85% of the rest of the audience to tap into.
Yeah, that's correct. But of course, he's not going to be running against Congress. Even I could beat Congress, and I don't know what I'm doing. What Trump has to do is put together, if he really wants to win this thing, he has to put together a competent professional political organization. He has to learn issues and really drill down on the issues. And he has to learn how to exploit his fame and exploit his notoriety in ways that can expand the Republican base and really bring to him voters that wouldn't look at Republicans otherwise. And if he did all of those things, he'd set himself up on
he needs to learn how to expand the base. I think is he not doing that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's go to our real quick. Go ahead.
What he's doing is he has expanded his support among Republicans, but all of the data shows us that of all of the leading candidates for president among Republicans, he does the worst against Hillary Clinton. And therefore, that's one of the reasons I think as we get into this campaign and further, if he doesn't change things up, Republicans, when they start to think about electability, given all of the choices they have, whether it's Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or Ben Carson or Carly Fiorina, and we could name 15 other candidates, they will pick somebody, and it doesn't have to be him.
Go ahead. Can you touch on that for a second? He is doing. Look at the Real Clear Politics average. He's what, 4 points above the next closest competitor. Yet everyone, Trump is toast. Don Voyage, that's it. He's finished. He doesn't. He's an Energizer bunny.
We mentioned that he has been able to, say controversial things about really every constituency possible: veterans, women, evangelicals, even you name it. But the reason, because there's been no consequence for him, that's really what fuels him and what fuels his supporters. They like that he's able to say these things without being driven out of the party. If any of these other candidates were talking the same way, using the same language and the same words, they'd be driven out out of politics for sure. What is important here, though, is over the next several weeks, keep an eye on some of these other candidates. Carly Fiorina on the debate stage last week talked about how the political class has failed you. She is tapping into that anxiety. Even John Kasich mentioned that the Republican electorate is frustrated with its own party. So look for whether these are voters who are very serious about this process, even if Trump isn't. And if they perceive him not to be, they will choose another candidate.
Quick question on this before I move on to another topic, Real. He invoked Ronald Reagan with Sean Hannity. We're going to see that interview later on tonight. Not a bad idea, not a bad strategy.
Well, look, I think invoking Reagan can't hurt, but I think at a time when so many voters don't even remember when he was president and so many were too young to really understand his presidency, number one, I don't think it really helps any Republican to make too big of a deal out of Ronald Reagan, as iconic, as important of a president as he was. I
think what he was doing is he was comparing Ronald Reagan, who was not necessarily always a Republican. We know he had gone to the dark side for a while and came back.
He was an FDR Democrat, but by 1964 he was supporting Barry Goldwater, a lot more conservative, I think, than Trump
Interesting
realizes.
name. Let me switch it over back to you, Caitlin. Let's talk money a little bit today. We heard Rick Perry has asked his staff that for the time being, we're not going to pay you as a campaign. Super PACs have to come in and start paying you. They're okay with that. Let me talk about Trump in relationship to that. He's never going to have that problem.
He's never going to have that problem. And what's interesting about Trump being in the field and taking up a lot of this oxygen from candidates, it's having an impact down the ballot. Rick Perry was really first out of the gate among the Republican rivals to attack Trump, thought he would get a lot of attention that way. He did, but that wasn't translating in the polls. So now the Super PAC is coming in to take over, and that's important because a lot of these candidates will rely on their Super PACs to take them farther than they would have made it traditionally. Remember, Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich had some Super PAC money behind them. They were able to last longer than originally thought. We're going to see that magnified this cycle.
David, Donald Trump, is he going to get sick of spending his own? First, frankly, I'm not sure he spent that much money anyway. He's everywhere without having to reach into his pocket. But is he going to get tired of spending his own money?
I think it depends on how committed he is to winning the nomination. I mean, the thing about wealthy people who've earned a living is one of the reasons they're wealthy is they don't waste money. They don't like to just spend it for nothing. But if he's committed to this and he's committed to not raising money and doing it on his own, he has the deepest pockets out there and he can do it. And I think there's something important to understand about Trump. He has fame, he has name recognition, he has an ability, he has at least the opportunity to attract the kind of support other candidates can't if he uses it.
I'm not sure you're going to hear a husband saying, honey, I'm going to write Donald a $500 check for his campaign. She'll say, you're going to do what? All right, we have to leave it right there. Caitlin and David, thank you very much.